Hey guys, welcome to Brewskis with Banks. Today my guest is an incredible drummer percussionist, has recorded with the best in the business, has traveled the world on various tour projects, and a great friend to India, Greg Ellis.
Hi, Gino.
Hey.
Nice to be here.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
So let's start at the beginning. How did music and drumming begin in your life?
Whew, right in. I started playing trumpet at 9 years old. I always had a sense of, with the pots and pans like every drummer early on and stuff. But my music started playing trumpet in my third grade school band. So I learned to read music by playing trumpet. Continued to play trumpet classical through high school, but never got off on it with jazz or improvising or anything. So by the time I was like 13, I just kind of had my ear on the drum section and the cadences and these. It was bicentennial. I remember 1976. It was all these marches and celebratory songs. And my brother had a little snare drum that he never used, and I started taking the drum music home and learning the cadences and stuff, and a couple pair of sticks, and just kind of started teaching myself. Showed my band teacher they were having trouble with this one section, and I worked this little part out, and she said, "Okay, you're gonna be in the drum section now." So I switched from first chair trumpet in 7th grade to then the drum section.
But did you choose trumpet, or was it given to you?
The trumpet I chose. The trumpet was something that the horn sections were always something in bands back then. I grew up in the 70s, so high school for me was 1979 to 1982.
So like Chicago and
all of it, you know. And so the horns are a really big part of music. Stevie Wonder, I mean, that's the record that did it. And Sir Duke was the one that's like, what's going on there? So a brass ensemble from college came to my school, and I just was blown away. I went home. I told my mom at 9 years old I want to play trumpet. So that completely came from me recognizing a sound there.
Okay.
That it's interesting because melodic instruments, I play everything. I can play open tuning on stuff and get through enough for my own recordings.
Right.
But there was just something in the melody that just never really grabbed me in that way. Mm-hmm. And I always had my ear to the rhythm section. You know? And it was a concert with B.B. King in the area I grew up as a Bay Area, Silicon Valley now. This is long before it was Silicon Valley. Right. But went and see B.B. King, and I forget his drummer at the time, but it was just like he had an earth ride cymbal, those old Zildjian earth rides. Yeah. And he just started off this groove at the beginning of the song, and I went for his horn section. And I just I couldn't take my eyes off him. Okay. And so that was 13 years old. Driving home, I told my mom, I had my snare drum going, but it's like I want a drum set. So got this old Olympia drum set and put on headphones and started learning. So I never had a teacher on drums. It was really just listening to records. I could make sense of it right away. Like I understood kick, hat, and snare. Right. But in terms of rudiments, I didn't really get into that for a few years. I was really just learning from the song up.
So nobody showed you how to grip the stick or technique or anything like that?
No, I mean, a couple of the drummers in the drum section who were taking lessons. Right. But I never asked. I would just watch. Yeah. I'm very observant in that way. Yeah. So I could see the way they would do it.
And then you would read the music and play.
And then I could read music, of course, but that didn't come into play on drum set till I became professional. Right, in high school we were just doing...
But for the snare drum stuff, were you reading?
Yeah, I was reading. Yeah. And it was much easier because I was reading complex melodies. So now it's just one line with rhythm. It's
it is easier for the drummers.
Exactly. So, but reading the music, I think, and playing trumpet and being inside an orchestra in the trumpet section as well, that gave me a sense of of the whole melodic sense going on around me. Right. I didn't, like I said, it wasn't solo trumpet I did. It was in the orchestra or marching band
sections.
But in the orchestra, hearing the music from inside the orchestra instead of the percussion section, you get the balance of frequencies, what's going on, the arrangements and everything. Yeah. And that's in my composition, my work now. I'm always looking for that full spectrum of balance in that way. Right. And I recognize that from being inside the orchestra instead of just in the percussion section. Right. So it was really just, shaped me as a musician and not just a drummer in that sense.
And your drum kit, was it a 4-piece, 5-piece?
It was a little 5-piece Olympia. I talked to, my first, I forget, we can talk drum talk now. All right, so let's get nerdy. But so the Olympia was a brand from England, and it was an offshoot of Premier. It was like their CB700, Okay. But so very quickly I outgrew it, and went to a music store for my next birthday, and there was a 6-piece Ludwig stainless steel, solid stainless steel shells.
Wow.
The guy thought it was a chromo wood. He thought it was just the chrome
Right.
finish.
Yes.
And over the wood shells, but it was a solid stainless steel kit. And so I got it for like next to nothing because he didn't know how valuable it was. I still have that's my first kit. That kit sounds amazing. So that
I'm
was
sure.
like 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 floor, 22 kick, and that's the kit I played all through high school. Was the stainless
You
steel.
still have it?
Still have it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those are rare. I mean, metal
They're very
drums.
rare. They
Oh
only
my
made it
God.
for like 5 years. Bonham
Yeah.
had one, I know, but they were really expensive to make. Carl Palmer.
Yeah.
But he didn't have Ludwig. But
Was it heavy?
Very heavy.
Yeah.
But the sound it's like there's it's in the studio it's amazing because you have the standard toms, but they're dry. It's not like nothing absorbs the sound in there, right? There's no
Right.
wood, so
Correct.
it's like it's this reflective sound, almost, and so that it sounds like a kit because they kind of vibrate as well. The
Yeah.
metal, you can hit them and it's like a tone.
Yeah.
So the kit sounded really good. Individually, each drum may not be that great,
Right.
but those kits sounded great. But so I just got really lucky with something that kind of special. And through high school, continued on that. I think then
So were you practicing at this time? Or were you just playing with bands, playing songs?
under headphones playing.
Oh, okay.
Talent shows and stuff. Original bands like that didn't really. Where I grew up, it was still a small town. Now it's kind of like I said, like the Beverly Hills of Silicon Valley, a town called Los Gatos, and it's near San Jose area there.
Right.
And so the clubs were cover bands, So when I started playing in bands, it was all cover stuff.
Right.
So never really. So I had to constantly learn stuff. I was never.
But that's like, what do you say, like automated transcribing.
Right.
Right? Because you
Right.
had to learn different songs, so grooves,
Exactly.
fills, and arrangements.
That's it, and memorize as well. But you didn't have to come up with your own parts. And that's kind of similar on social media today, where it's like, to cover Neil Peart's one thing, but coming up with those parts, that's what we're missing, I think.
Yeah.
And so that's something that made me more of a sideman than an artist in that sense. And so when I moved to LA, that's what my first work was a sideman. So somebody else record the album, and I'd do the tour.
Right.
So always learning somebody else's songs.
Yeah.
And that we'll get into that later, but that shifted then much later down the road.
Yeah.
But that's how it began. I could really, the different feels of the songs I could really get, and I could shift styles really quickly.
Yeah. So with this kit, what cymbals were you using?
Zildjian.
Okay.
Always Zildjian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you were playing these gigs, and then what prompted the LA move? Did you go to study directly?
I didn't. I was, I really loved classical music because of playing trumpet as well. But by my junior year in high school, I had pretty much stopped playing trumpet in orchestra band as well. And so I was going I was going to go for a music major education. So I enrolled at San Jose State and went there for about 8 months or so. And it was in the college system there, it's like you start off with orchestral music.
Yeah.
Then you get into the jazz and world music and all that stuff. And they had an amazing jazz and world music department, but it was 2 years away. And so the orchestra stuff as a freshman in college, you're counting 80 bars of rest and stand up and your Piatti crash. I'm just like going, really? And that was when PIT first started. In that, I think 82 or 1980, I think they started. This was 1982.
Right.
83, did my year in college, and I saw an ad in Modern Drummer for PIT, and that was in March of 1984. And by August, I was moving to LA. So I dropped out of college. My mom was very supportive of that time as well. She just kind of encouraged whatever I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But then you just had to do a little cassette recording for an audition, and then anybody could really get in if they could play.
Okay.
But they had like A, B, and C groups. So
Right. To what level you were at.
exactly.
Yeah.
So they always said, like, we're not saying which one is the best, but you knew immediately which one was the best. So I got in the B group. I was always a good, solid player.
Yeah.
I didn't have the chops really,
Yeah.
and I didn't have the rudimentary technique.
Okay.
So Joe Picaro and Chuck Flores, as we mentioned too, they were all and Steve Houghton at PIT. They got me that's when I first started really rudimentary practice.
Okay.
Which I had never done growing up. I did double strokes and paradiddles and
yeah.
stuff, but it was only by necessity.
Yeah.
I would never I never practiced on a practice
Yeah.
pad. I'd play along to Led Zeppelin 4 and
Right.
Steely Dan, Asia,
Right.
and
So now flams and drags and everything.
yeah, that came. Then the Swiss triplets, all that
Yeah.
stuff came later. But now that's the stuff I use playing nagaras and Indian drums
Yes.
here. All that stuff is now something that I use, and it just comes secondary because it's part of the rhythm. So I still don't have the technique of being able to sit down and show off all my rudiments. You know,
Right.
but I can pull them out wherever they're needed. It's in that sense. So.
Yeah. So that experience, were you gigging when you were studying at the same time, or just
No, I started. It was the LA club scene then was just incredible.
Yeah.
And after hour jams, it's like you could go see Vinny and Dave and all of them just like with the best players. And so some of them, the MI students were we were allowed in. They tolerated us.
Yeah.
So we'd help, maybe roadie for a gig or something
Sure,
and set
yeah.
up, and we'd get into the gig and stuff.
Yeah.
But we would always be at the same places every night because that's where he's going to be playing. That's where he's going to be playing. But to have access like that, the thing is back then you couldn't fake it. So if you jammed us, if you got asked up to jam, that was it. If you nailed it, you'd be asked back. But if not, so I was cautious because I didn't have that. Like I said, I was never just like a sit-down solo-y technical player.
Right.
But I could always play to the song.
Yeah.
And make it groove.
Yeah.
So I had to be sure, it wasn't going to be something that they called me up for that I just But you find it, and so a couple producers that would be there and they'd hear you play and say, hey, you want to do a demo? And that would be the first thing, and then that would lead to a record, and then that would lead to a tour.
So even that was like a working gig, right? Doing a demo?
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing. Back then, you'd come off a tour, and you could do 3 or 4 demos a week and still make a living.
Yeah.
$150 a demo.
Yeah.
So the infrastructure was there, and no one was proprietary of their gigs either, because there was so much.
Yeah.
So we had one guy in mind, a guy named Alan Vavrin, this drummer, who all the real hot students at the school kind of laughed at him because he was a sight reader though. He could put anything in front of him, so he did all the commercial jingles.
There you go.
So he didn't do any albums or big tours, but he made a living.
Yeah.
Really, probably better than a lot of guys
Yeah.
who do tours because everything then was union and stuff.
Yeah.
So he'd do 3 or 4 sessions a day of doing commercial jingles, and so you could see it. You didn't have to just go this one route.
Yeah.
Drummers were needed everywhere. So you
Right.
had club gigs, you had weddings, you had the union referral service, and you could see the different stages of what you needed to do to get to those points.
Right.
I really wanted to tour, and so I didn't focus on the studio stuff so much. If I heard audition for a tour, that's where it would go to.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened early on. Is my first real proper gig was a tour instead of a
Right. So
studio
that was
session.
with?
That was a band called David and David, and they were on A&M Records back then. A singer-songwriter duo, kind of indie rock, and they had Ed Green did the record, Denny Fongheiser. They were kind of Steely Dan, the two of them, and they hired different musicians.
Right.
So they had auditions for the tour, and I had made a connection in a random way after a concert of the Thompson Twins, which is a British new wave band in the 80s. Hold Me Now was their big song. I went to a concert and afterwards hung out with my friend, and we were just kind of waiting for the crowd to clear out, and the manager started talking to us, and he said, hey, do you want to come meet the band? I said, yeah. So became friends with him, went and see them in San Francisco the next night, and I stayed in touch with him. That was the year I moved to LA, and he referred me actually to a management company that managed Berlin at the time when they had the Every Breath You Take hit from
Take
Top
My
Gun.
Breath Away.
Yeah, Take My Breath Away. Yeah, not the place.
That's the other guy.
And they had just signed this new band, and so brought me in, said that here's your audition date. They had auditioned 30 or 40 guys back then.
Wow.
A week before my audition was set, they had said they hired someone. So I'm like, okay, well, that's how you do it. You're going to get close, and that's it. Yeah. A couple weeks later, got a call. They said, he can't do it. Can you be here tomorrow? And I just stayed up all night listening to that record, realizing that, again, like I said, my ability to learn songs was something that was an asset back then.
Yes.
And I realized I'm going to learn this record exactly the way it is. I'm not going to put any of my own stuff in there. Right. I want these guys to feel like they're hearing their record.
Yeah.
And it worked. And I went in, I did the audition, and by the time I got home, had a call, and they said, you got the gig. So
awesome.
That was 22 years old, and then that was 3 months American tour, and then we went overseas and toured. And so that was really my first major label proper gig, you know.
So what drums were you playing on that tour?
That tour, I had my Tamas at that time. I had switched to Tama Art Stars, and that was a mahogany kit.
Power Toms?
The Power Toms, yeah. Which now I just like, Power Toms are, I don't know. You know, did it really make them more powerful? It just made them... Visually, exactly. But yeah, that was a nice kit. And that's when I got my endorsements then. Mm-hmm. So I had a Tama endorsement at the time. And then Zildjian cymbals and ProMark sticks. ProMark had a campaign set of the not yet famous drummers. And so you could you could submit a little essay or something, mail it to them, and then they'd have an ad in Modern Drummer of like 30 of us. Like every month they would have that ad of not yet famous drummers. So I got picked for that when I was at MI. And then it was a year and a half later when I called them and said, I got this gig. And Pat Brown, who was at ProMark at the time, who was just, you know, those guys at the companies back then were so great. And he just said, whatever you need, because I was the first one of the not yet famous ones to actually get a gig. So they hooked me up. And that's in the world of endorsements. Remo I went with then too. And so that was from 22 till 24, I think. A couple years.
Oh, that's nice.
That I played. So that time. And touring back then too was a whole different thing, because you really were away. There was no connectivity. So as to travel like that was just so exciting, you know.
And of course, so basically those days, because I mean, I don't think there was backline anywhere. So you all were taking the rig.
You had your own gear. There was never backline. I mean, European gig, for a one-off European show, they would ship my drums. Rocket Cargo would hear my cases. Everybody had to have the big flight cases. It was that part I really miss, you know. You know, I mean, God, it's just how drums are somehow like a piano. Graham, you're not going to carry your Bosendorfer around or something, right? But for us, it's an instrument, and we respond to this thing. For it to just be something that can just be so I was luckily during that time, I'm just really grateful I had that time to really have my instrument and tour with it and have that sense of being taken care of. Like
so
that.
Did you have a drum tech?
I had a drum tech. Everything was it was full, and so you didn't touch anything. And I've had a couple of those since, but no, back then it was just a standard. So again, your drum tech was, you know, your best friend, because he was with you no matter what you did. I had a guy who then did the different tours with me, not just with the band. So.
Right. And so now, were you primarily touring, so going from like one band to another, doing tours?
So after, that's the thing. When I finished the David and David tour, you know, getting the first tour and the first gig is hard, but the second one is harder. Because I got back from tour, and all of a sudden the money's gone. Oh, right. I'm not working right now. And so, you know, you have some savings set up, but it's like how to get the next gig. I remember there was another band that had a minor hit that a friend of mine knew, and I told him to let him know I'm available, and he said, well, why is he available? Like, if he's that good, he should be working. I'm like, well, somebody has to be available to take the gig. So, but you realize there's this whole other thing now and so then what happened is I started thinking maybe to find a band. And this is 1986 Los Angeles, so it was the big hair metal stuff and everything.
Right.
I never, the style of musicians and the bands I played in were always just more of a uniform. If it's a rock band, I'll dress like a rock guy. If it's a jazz thing, if it's, you know, whatever. So for me, I was a musician. I didn't have this kind of like my own style necessarily. It's been t-shirt and jeans my whole life. So to join this rock band that I ended up joining, it's like I had to grow my hair. I had to, you know, get leather vests and pants and stuff, do the photo shoots. And so then that isolated me from the indie guys I was working with. And I didn't realize that till later. But for me, it was just another gig. So I joined a band called Shark Island, and we ended up signing to Epic Records. But we did 2 songs for the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure soundtrack, the first movie. So we had 2 songs on the soundtrack, which got some attention and stuff. And then Epic Records signed us, released our album that I was part of, and videos on MTV and touring. And it did well. We were opening up for Guns N' Roses and LA Guns and other Rat and bands like that. But then second album, singer went off to do something, whatever, it fell apart. But that year was my first record contract I signed. So I was 24 when I
Right.
joined that band.
So being as part of a band, not like a
Not
hired
outside,
guy.
yeah. So you're getting a cut, you're getting
Yeah.
paid that merch, everything
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that. And we were successful enough that we had the support of the label that we could. It was really fun, and I enjoyed it. But I didn't realize after that, when that didn't break up, now everybody thinks I'm this rock guy.
Yeah, you get pigeonholed into being a certain kind of thing.
And it was back then. It was like kind of a nothing on any kind of, but a street gang mentality almost. Like the rockers and the mods and the
Yeah.
indies. Like these
Yeah.
guys all had their thing, kind of mock each other like that. But during that time, the rock stuff was everything, and so. Even jazz guys would, Frank Gambale had his had the '80s dude stuff, and they were so everybody was trying to get that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I didn't like that the posing part of it and the need for it to be concerned what I wear to the hotel lobby because
Right.
you have to look like a rock star and stuff. So that kind of alienated me from certain musicians I worked with who were only that. So. But I went deeper into it because then what happened after Shark Island was Steve Stevens from Billy Idol, so the great guitar player.
Right.
He had come to see. Had just left Billy Idol and was starting a band called Atomic Playboys, which was a solo album he did. So he came to a gig Shark Island did in New York to look at our singer, but he then saw me and needed a drummer.
Yeah.
Not for that project, but for something else. And then, and so he contacted me and said, his manager first said, Steve Stevens' manager, and I thought it was my band playing, like, checking to see if I was loyal to the band.
Oh.
So I get a call from this guy because he had an Australian accent, his manager, and I hadn't really heard an Australian accent. I thought it was a bad English accent, So I
But some people do think it is,
right?
yeah, I
So
know.
I didn't have a lot of experience, so I think it's a bad English accent. I'm thinking one of these, like, it's my guitar player because they were worried because I could do sideman work.
Right.
I didn't have to be in a band. And I was getting restless. We're not making our second record. And so I didn't take it seriously. He said, well, Steve Stevens really wants to, work with you on this album he's doing with Michael Monroe from band Hanoi Rocks. That was also a huge 80s rock band. So it was like a super group, the two of them coming together. And I just said, okay, sure, let me know what's going on. He's like, okay. And then like 5 minutes later, I got a call from Steve.
Oh, okay.
And Steve's like, yeah, Greg, Lindsay, my manager, has called you, and he seemed like maybe you didn't take it seriously. So he convinced me this is real and all that.
Yeah.
And that back then, again, he was the best, and just come off of Billy Idol. And so we were signed to Mercury Records. And then that was going to be a supergroup thing. So that I flew to New York, a month of pre-production. Then we recorded in Chicago, a famous studio there. There were Chili Peppers and everybody was recording. And then I was on retainer for 4 months while they mixed the record, and I made more money on retainer than I had on any gig, and I'm not playing. And so now you see that side of the business, like, wait, what? This is weird. Like, I'm not playing. Then they got their arguments and imploded and stuff, and the record never came out. So I was made, again, probably the most money I made in a year, and I just recorded an album. We never toured or anything.
And didn't get released?
No. It finally got released in Japan.
Okay.
But they were, the two of them really had odds. So that's when I came back and I was doing more sessions, and that's when I started now getting into some
studio thing?
percussion. No, the
percussion
stuff.
side.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's like where, for me, the story really starts as being a musician.
Oh, okay.
And that.
But prior to that, you were just playing drum set.
Only drum set. I had not touched. I mean, percussion to me was like a lesser version of drum set.
Right.
I mean, the drum set was everything for me, and I didn't think there was really any other like it wasn't congas or anything like that. I got into the more Eastern and Middle Eastern Asian stuff, but no, I was never drawn to percussion. It was just because I wanted to make the groove,
So with drum set, it's primarily, of course, stick technique, right? But now percussion, you're dealing with playing with your hands. So how was that transition?
Yeah, well, that came from, I was touring with Shark Island. We were opening for a band called LA Guns and doing a tour of the States, and my guitar player, his sister was a ethnomusicologist at University of Washington, and his birthday's a few days before mine. So it was a week of our birthday. Got on the bus one night, and he opened up a package from his sister. His birthday's 3 days before mine, and he said it was a book called Drumming at the Edge of Magic by Mickey Hart.
Okay.
And he opened it up and looked at it, and he said, "I think this is meant for you," and like tossed it to me. And he was absolutely right. That book was my point of singularity of getting into of understanding the world of percussion.
Yeah.
And the subtitle of the book is How the Spirit of Rhythm Got Lost in the West. And so the book is, I was never a Grateful Dead fan necessarily, but Mickey Hart, this is before Planet Drum or anything. He was always an interesting cat, and had done the Rhythm Devil stuff for like Apocalypse Now and films and everything.
Yeah.
But being in the Bay Area, the Grateful Dead was a fixture up there. But I was never really into their music. Mm-hmm. Since then, I've actually come to very much appreciate it, because I ended up working with Mickey for years after that. But the book was just this eye-opener for me, because it was like his autobiographical stuff I could relate to, but he kind of found it the same way, like this other world of rhythm, and through the travels and stuff. And so that was when I first read about Zakir and Alaraka and Babatunde and Airto and all the greats,
Yeah.
And at the back of the book was a discography of all these CDs of world music encyclopedia. And the first CD I got was Drums of North and South India with Zakir Hussain and Alaraka. And I would get, after these shows, playing in front of 10,000 people and bashing, all I wanted to do was get my headphones on and listen.
Wow.
It was like, what we can do with 4 limbs on a kit can be pretty impressive, But that whole somatic sense of the body moving as one, that's all part of it, right? When I play the way I play percussion now, because I use my feet, I can embody that. But back then, it was all just hand stuff, and so I'm hearing this, like the tabla for the first time, like this solo tabla, and just, my God, where's that? And so without seeing it, so I'm just trying to imagine, because I had never really seen a tabla player.
Right.
We didn't have access back then, so America wasn't isolated necessarily, but if you didn't know how to find this stuff, it would never come across your plate,
Right.
And so then Zakir was coming, to play in LA, and so then once I saw him, he did a concert with Lakshmi Shankar in LA, and that, like, my God, it's just, you see this whole other world of what you do spoken, like this language that you think and it's like there's this whole vocabulary that you understand, but it's like it's like hardcore philosophy, you're just trying to grasp what it is, as for me as an American, and also being self-taught. So that shift was really about channeling these 4 limbs down to this, but you got fingers now, and I started seeing that, so I started developing kind of my own finger technique.
So what drums were you working with at that time to kind of get comfortable?
That time was like, djembe I started on, and that was just like, friends with like drum circles where I would just I just get my string, we just go for 10 hours,
because my God,
it's a whole different thing. The calluses from sticks don't do anything, So darbuka and frame drum were the other two. So this is all around mid-90s now. A commercial director who was my neighbor, I had a little 4-track I started recording my drums on. I had collected some things and everything, but I was still thinking kick, snare, and half. So if I played a darbuka, I wasn't playing Turkish rhythms. I was still playing, basic rhythms, but
drum set vocab grooves, basically.
Exactly.
Ideas, right?
And but recognizing the doom and the tech. Like, here's the bass tone, here's the kick and the snare, right? So I wasn't thinking really technique, but I started layering these instruments, and I could hear music, because the kit on its own, it's like, we would appreciate it, but it's not really a solo instrument like that, as a recital type instrument, and I think it's because of lack of the melodic component in there. Guys like Marco Miniman and these guys, I think, are you as well, of like using your toms and tuning, like you hear that, but it's not really inherent to the kit, certainly not back then. And so you always needed to play with another musician. So I started layering these drums in a way that I understood, like my orchestra training came back in. Oh, I need a bass frequency there. I need a high frequency and balance. So my neighbor was a commercial director, and he had heard this thing I was kind of experimenting with. He'd walk his dog by my house in L.A., knocked on my door Wednesday and said, "This is a really cool, what am I hearing here?" I go, "It's just some music I'm making." He goes, "You know, this would be great for commercial I'm scoring. Have you ever scored commercials?" I'm like, "What scoring?" I had no idea. I'm 27 at the time. And he put me up in a studio. I re-recorded this track. This is kind of tribal thing with slit drum and, you know, djembe and stuff, and added some flute on there that I could play, and because of my wind instrument training. And it got on a national commercial, and his agent then hired me for all his other directors as well. So then I got into scoring, and now I bought my ADAT studio. Now everything is self-taught, though. The weekend I got my studio that I had to deliver on this first big commercial I did, my engineer friend who said he would help me out with everything decided to go out of town, and so I have a deadline in 3 days, and I have to literally learn how to work.
So you're recording yourself?
Yeah. And oh my God, the feedback blasts in my headphones sometimes when the bus is wrong or the sins and everything, and it was just not trial by error, just knowing, like, I'd been in studios. I just had to, again, get a different headspace. I'm not a player now. I'm an engineer, you know, so you can't think. You have to be really focused on these things. So,
and this is pre-DAWs?
This was all ADAT.
ADAT.
Yeah, it was my first studio. And so that's the thing. I went from a 4-track Tascam cassette recorder to then the ADAT. You had 8 tracks, you know, and then I got 2 more. So you had 24 tracks with your VHS tape. And you could make records. You know, it was digital recording. So, but waiting for them to lock up and everything, all this stuff. So we were the first pioneers. And, you know, with now we're in this, what we have with Pro Tools and everything. But I'm glad I came into it with analog mentality, though, then. Because it was still, you didn't have to learn something else like a computer or a platform, you know. The signal's coming from here and going to there. So if you're not hearing it, you could work it out, you know.
And you still had to perform.
You still had to play. Full takes. Because especially when I'm engineering myself.
And then layering.
So I'd have to press record, rewind like 30 seconds before, press record, get into my booth, get on the drums, do it, and all of a sudden I'm not hearing it. Oh, shit, I forgot to unmute that, so I had to go back. So you had to really do it because you didn't want to stop and do that thing again. Play the song all the way through, you know, and that was a thing back then too. You really had to, if you showed up on time and you were cool to hang with, and you could lay down a take in a couple takes, lay down a track in a couple takes, you'd be hired again. The chops were kind of irrelevant. It's like if you played the song,
giving them what they want.
That's right. And that's where I feel like today too. Even when I go into sessions now, I feel intimidated because drummers are expected to be able to do everything. Almost like all styles and all this, you know, the flashy stuff that is just not my thing. I can pull it out in the song, but when I sit down, I feel like I'm teaching myself every time I sit down behind a kit. Like I'm uploading all my self-taught information. I don't have the direction from a guru or a teacher or a mentor that you have being told to you. So that part of it, I think, is hard sometimes. Especially now, I do get intimidated because. Back then, you didn't have to be the best drummer; you just had to be the right drummer. And if you're the right drummer for the gig, you get the gig. They didn't care what else you couldn't do. Only cared what you did do in the music, you know. And that part of it.
But I think it's still the right thing to do is just the right thing for the song.
Completely,
that's the right thing to do.
All professionals know this. I mean, anybody on our levels know this. All the chops you have. I actually, when I joined Shark Island, and the drummer originally in the band was Chris Frazier. You know Chris Frazier? He played with Steve Vai and stuff back in Satriani. Fantastic player, but he was like, back then he was just like, in a rock band, he was very limited. And so, I mean, he could outplay anybody. And his solo, when I first saw Shark Island, before I joined the band, the managers wanted me to come down because they knew they were going to replace him. And my favorite part of the show was Chris's solo. He was just like, he was phenomenal. I'm like, why are you replacing this guy? And I'm going to replace him, you know? So we came into the studio, did the first demos for the album, and the producer also was saying the same thing, like your feel is just really great, and that's what we were missing here, you know. And so guitar player later told me that he played it for Chris, the track, because he just wanted to know who replaced me, you know, and he played the track, and it's just like, it was just this couple fills in the song, and that was it.
Yeah.
But it was a slow, kind of mid-tempo,
Yeah.
heavy groove thing that you just needed to like lay into
Yeah.
it. And he said, now I know what playing in the pocket means. It means you take all your fills and you put them in your pocket. And it's true. You know, it's like what you were saying, the spice, the salt.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you don't want too much of it. And the fills are that. And I think it also gets you into, again, what I love about your playing is I don't hear you thinking about it.
Yeah, no.
You know, you're not like thinking
not
of your...
good.
No, it's not. But I hear that with a lot of guys. You know, certainly in the nature of the way they play solos and stuff. I don't hear discovery.
Yeah.
I hear just kind of let me pull this out, and do that again in another way. But I'm not hearing the music so much in it.
Yeah.
Except, you know, obviously they're the players that have that. But for me back then, it was a real asset because you would be hired on strictly what you could do with that song. You didn't have to audition with a solo or anything. You audition with the music.
Right.
So I was a very musical player. I knew when not to play.
Naturally.
And that's playing trumpet.
Yeah.
You understood melody.
Yes.
You know. So when I go into sessions now, I want the lead sheet. I don't want the drum chart because I want to see where the melody's going. That's what I'm playing to.
Yeah.
And if that's what the singer's singing, I want to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't need slash marks for you know the whole chart and think like that's a drum part.
Right.
You're just counting bars at that point.
Yeah.
So I always was able to interact with melody in that sense. And I think producers back then, when you needed to get a full take, that you could see that, like, you know, I'm playing the song and I'm not just like trying to get to my fill kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that was something that I don't know how coming into it now, the pressure of being just, you know, of having these chops and having that kind of be expected of you.
Yeah.
I miss those kind of old school players that just could lay it down, you know?
But it's like you said, the feel, but also because if you understand the song, you will bring the right sound. Sound is like most important, I think.
Right. You know how to tune your drums. You know what cymbals to use, you know? And even now what kit to use when you have options like that.
Exactly.
But that's right. I think again, that integration. Maybe I think the way we record today, where it can be so isolated, where I can do a whole album for somebody and never meet the other musicians.
Exactly.
That interaction is everything. And so, like, seeing the way the bass player changes something, like, you're going to respond almost to the body language more than the notes.
Yeah.
You can tell when somebody's going to bring it down and stuff and push it. And, you know, those expressions are not just like performative.
Right.
It's communication. And I think that eye contact and that acknowledgement within the song, when you do something and somebody else sees that, you don't have that when you're just in a studio by yourself recording.
Yeah, and even though you're playing the same part, it feels different when you're playing with people.
Always.
You're not playing a different part.
Yeah.
It feels a little different.
Yeah.
A little adjustment, a little something here and there that kind of nuances that section, that gives it something special that you'll not get from a loop.
No, you can't.
Yeah. You'll not get it from playing by yourself.
Right.
You know?
It's really true. And I think that of course, all these things, I always want to be cautious when I talk, because I never want to sound like things were better at any point. There was as much shitty pop music in the 70s as there is now, but it's not about the song or the quality of the music. In those songs back in the 70s, you had 15 of the top session players playing that crap. Yeah. They were working, you know, so you could hear a fill that somebody does on some, you know, jingle, a TV show, for instance, you know.
Right.
These were the top guys getting that
one.
So you knew you were part of something in there that you still had to interact with people and work with them and stuff. And so you could get the guy was mentioned earlier of who did the commercial jingles at MI. Wasn't the best player by any means, but he worked more than anybody because put a piece of music up in front and play the beat, and there you go. So.
Do you think also the pressure in delivering something quickly because of studio time?
Yeah.
That puts everybody kind of on edge and kind of makes something happen.
You mean back then?
Yeah,
definitely. Because
you
were on the clock.
This out in 2 hours, like a new song, like you said, 15 musicians.
If you didn't get it in 3 takes, there's no way you'd get rehired.
Yeah.
Like past 3 takes is like overtime, you know.
Yeah.
Somebody's paying for that
And
now.
it's usually the first or second take that's going to make it, I think.
It's the one. But I mean, if you're having trouble with with something, or it's they want it to sound like a band, but so you're working with players you don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes you need to have that
Yeah.
3 or 4 or 5 times going through it,
Yeah.
not necessarily takes.
Yeah.
This was like the music and the take. You
Yeah.
did not. You maybe ran through a couple tricky parts, but they pressed record as soon as the music was on the stand.
Right.
So you had to have all that stuff worked out beforehand. So you had to commit.
Yeah.
You know, and the time was money. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
And so if you did it in one take, I remember I did a couple albums, but with this one producer. But he called me on this first one of this Texas blues rock guitar player, which that stuff I can just play in my sleep. And he said they'd been working with a drummer for 2 days, and they only got like 4 out of the 10 songs done. You know, can you come in and hear this and see what we can do? And I ended up doing all 10 songs in one day. He still got paid for the 2 days. So I'm like, wait, I'm getting paid less because I'm better? So if I fucked up on those songs, I could have actually...
Yeah.
Anyway, so...
That's true.
It's really interesting. Yeah, and I've had that happen numerous
Yeah.
times in my career, that I'm getting hired. It just happened actually recently on an album I did. Someone who funds his own projects and pays us well, and top couple guitar players that are in the band, and the bass player, you know, top session guys. This is the 3rd album I've done, and the first 2 took 10 to 12 days. We do a song a day. And so he'd come in, play the song, and then you know, we'd work out the arrangement, like try it out, lay down a rough take before lunch, do lunch, come back, do a couple takes, and it'd be done.
Yeah.
And that was a day. So we're getting our day rate for 10 days. So he wanted to do another one, but he wanted to save money on it, so he cut it down to 5 days. Can we do 2 songs a day? Well, of course we can. We can do 3 songs a day, which we did as well.
Yeah.
But he still wanted to pay just a day rate. So you're getting the same stuff, same amount of material, but just because we are good, then we can actually do 2 and 3 songs a day.
Yeah.
We get paid less.
Yeah.
Because it's only you're getting 5 days studio pay instead of 10 days. So it's not a per song fee like that. And that part's interesting to me.
But is it like a union thing for the day rate?
None of this is union stuff. The day rate is based on a union scale.
Yeah.
10% of my work is union in the
So
States.
it doesn't work like that. I mean, over here it works per song.
Yeah.
So if you take one day or you take, you know, it's per song.
Per song, yeah.
So
well, I think I can make those deals, but I had already established this as well. But I thought he's cutting time on the studio and everything else, and he's saving money. But you want to save money on us as well? Yeah. And it you know, people that you would consider friends, that you colleagues you've worked with like that, you really, it's where else would you undercut a professional on this level, like your plumber or your roofer, something like that? Like if the job took another 6 days, you're going to pay them, you know?
Yeah.
So this is the opposite. If they finish early, they still get paid for the job, you know? And so that's the thing. I didn't make the deal up front. I thought for sure it would be, and it wasn't. It's just kind of, it's the nature of it now, because it's not this you're wanting to get it done. You're just not wanting to see how deep it can go. Let's take a couple days and just explore some of these tracks and stuff. Yeah. So, you know, I'm grateful for that, for the work and all that. But yeah, it does, that part of it of how good you are, if you're not working all the time, like that can actually be a detriment in terms, especially now today where you can cut paste it and just, you don't have to be that great. You can.
Somebody said that, you know, it's like, oh, like this guy came in and he played the song in 15 minutes, you know?
Right.
So that guy's like, but he's charging so much money. He's saying, yeah, but you're paying him for that 30 years he kind of prepped for this 15-minute session, you know?
There's a Ronnie musician friend I play with said that very similar story. Because all the musicians there are getting paid $50 a day, right? And the soloist elder guy comes in to do a flute solo over 8 bars, and he walks in 20 minutes and he's done. He got paid $100, and they're saying, why does he get paid $100 for 15 minutes? And it's like, well, he's getting paid for 40 years plus 15 minutes, you know? And that's, again, I think that appreciation the musicians understand. But I think in the business, it's no longer an asset, really.
Yeah, unless the composer producer really wants you to play.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if they're in charge, they're calling the shots, so they're working the budget and all that. But for the most part, whoever's funding it wants it done as quickly as possible. Yeah. And if there's something there, we'll fix it in the mix. We can cut and paste. We can do anything.
But that's what taught growing up, it's like you want to save everybody money, so you want to nail it the quickest and do the
Right.
best job as fast as possible.
Yeah.
You know, not waste people's time.
Right.
And then it works against you.
Yeah. But like guys like Dylan and stuff about, I remember he said something where it was like, after the third take, the song, it's gone. The magic of the song is gone.
It is.
You
I
know?
feel that too.
I feel that too.
Yeah.
That now you're thinking about, now you're wondering why aren't
Yeah,
we getting into
yeah.
something, that thing. So,
I think it's better to hit it the next day
right.
and get the first 2 takes of the next day.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a subtle kind of awareness of production that in the age of Pro Tools, when you're
Yeah.
looking at the music instead of listening to it, it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
And you got some young guys that don't really have any reference for that
Yeah.
kind of interaction and that understanding of the music.
Yeah.
You know? Because they only have grown up working with these deadlines and
Yeah.
getting it quickly as possible.
Right,
so,
right. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So you were doing commercials?
Yeah.
Then did that transition into doing film scores?
Yeah, so back then, the same way, like, you know, you would get paid for demos, when you're doing commercials, you would actually get paid to submit a demo for the commercial.
No way.
They would get 3 composers and pay properly, like
Wow.
$1,000, $1,500.
I didn't know
because you
that.
had to record a demo for
Right.
it, and then they would choose between the 3 composers. So they would put a few grand out just to get demos of, because it wasn't so much about temp score and where they had the idea. They wanted the composer to, they wanted that
Yeah.
response to the piece. It wasn't, everything wasn't there, like you have to recreate
yeah.
what they've done already.
So they're paying you for composition, basically.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I started doing, the first commercials were all kind of rhythmic heavy and stuff, but then I got a Lee Jeans commercial that was a Super Bowl halftime ad.
Oh, wow.
So the pressure was everything for the agency. For me, it was just another thing. But then I had to actually create and I pulled my trumpet out on that one and got this real cool vibey thing that it's like all of a sudden brought my trumpet and I was like, oh yeah, I can actually use this too.
Yeah.
So I can work out melodies. My lip by that point had gone. So I could play for like 20 or 30 minutes and my
the
lip was,
armature.
exactly, because I just hadn't played for years. But idea-wise, all of a sudden, what I couldn't do when I was playing trumpet in high school, which was improvise, now I understood like how to do that. And so I used my trumpet to actually create a lot of melodies I would end up doing maybe on piano or hire guitar player or something. But that piece then really kind of got me into for the next couple of years, some really great work and a bunch of national spots and commercials. And what it did is also get my production chops
Right.
up. So now, you know, the ADATs are gone and got the first version of Pro Tools and getting that. And I had a group called Voss on Narada Records, which is owned by Virgin. And it was myself and an Iranian singer who sang kind of in her own phonetic language. And I did my own version of different styles of rhythmic, but all percussion and voice.
Yeah.
And so we had 5 albums that we had done together, but it was unique during that. It was like Dead Can Dance, and but it was all organic stuff. It wasn't loop, and all that stuff was just starting then. So we got attention of some film composers, and so the film stuff. So my commercial work didn't jump to film work. It started my work as a recording artist because now I could produce and create music of my own.
Yeah.
Then I was just like, well, I put a singer to it, and all of a sudden now this is my own music.
Yeah.
It's not being hired. So that was the first time. That was 97, 98. And that was my first experience as a recording artist.
Right.
So for the first time now, I'm not being hired to do the music and create for somebody else. It's really that. And it was somewhat successful. We enough that we could, that's all we did for the next 4 years, an album a year.
Oh, fantastic.
We live on the advances. We record everything at the home studio. And
so you always recorded at home? You always had a setup to record?
Yeah, always recorded at home.
So this really helped your production chops?
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I give it to the ADAT and digital recording, because it really allowed that for the first time. Yeah. But I would always have like a drum booth or a room that I could have somewhat soundproof to be able to lay stuff down. But yeah, everything was always done at home. All my studio work has been strictly as hired gun, so I've never gone into the studio from the ground up on my own music.
Yeah.
Which eventually I will, but it's like I work differently. I have all the instruments I have and everything. I have 10 different udus, and so I want to go through each one and see if what's going to be the best one, and 50 finger cymbals and what's the right pitch and stuff, So I like that kind of extended process at home, because you can't just bring all that stuff to the studio. Again, you're paying for the studio too. So it allowed me to have a much more relaxed way of not pressure, and my neurodivergent mind doesn't respond to that pressure very well a lot of times. So my own work, I could really let it develop, which it did, and it became something quite unique. So Voss was the first, my first stuff as a composer and artist, and Tyler Bates, who was the composer on 300, and does John Wick and everything now, and he had heard our first album and had contacted us for a film he was composing. So at first he was just going to hire the singer, and then he said, he needed some rhythm stuff too, can I come down? And so that was my kind of first film session. I forget it wasn't some Danny DeVito and film, What's the Worst That Could Happen? Something back in the 90s or something like that, but it was a proper studio film.
Yeah.
And he was just starting out his career as well. So I did the first 5 or 6 films was with Tyler, and then he got 300. And 300 was like, for me, it's kind of my magnum opus. The amount of work I did on that film, aside from the orchestral percussion, every other drum you hear on there is me, layered and layered and layered like I did. So he added it up, and apparently there's like 600 hours of my playing on that score.
Oh my God.
Because every cue had 15 or 20 layers of me, And we really spent time, because they were shooting up in Toronto in front of a green screen, and the amount of time it took to render the effects on 300, we had a lot of time to work on it. So they would shoot to the music we'd do and stuff. But I was really, like, early on, an integral part of creating that kind of that heavy percussion score. And then from there came the Matrix films and Iron Man and all the other big ones during that time. And that was all because of the way I knew how to layer the drums. So most guys would come in, they'd have cartage to supply all these taikos and everything like that, but I knew it's not just doubling stuff, like you leave the space, let the small taiko interact with the large taiko, and I create this thing going on that you build on with the basses and the cellos, for instance. So composers loved it because it gave the rhythmic score and orchestration. It wasn't just like this kind of stereo track of rhythm. I could be really nuanced and subtle. Udu is like a huge part of my sound in the studio, and you wouldn't think that would be a big action movie instrument. But Navras on Matrix, on the Matrix soundtrack, the Udu is what carries that whole piece, because it's like it got boom 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 boom, so the sound in there, you can get that with the basses and everything else going on. So I had that musical sense in the film work is where my trumpet playing, orchestra understanding, kit playing, and I was also playing kit on a lot of these scores too. So everything came together in the film world,
And you think because you had an unconventional approach to world percussion, made it original?
Completely, because that's when they want tabla on the Matrix, they don't want traditional tabla. They want straight 16th notes, just the sound of the tabla. So it was if they brought a Turkish darbuka player in because they want a darbuka, you're gonna get all this finger stuff and all these patterns. It's very hard for them to just play tika 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 tika, So I understood the applications of what they were doing, because I also composed and scored films myself. So I had that relationship with the picture that I understood as a composer, that then as a player, a lot of times they would just tell me to just give me a click track and say, do your thing. And then you're saying, well, do you mean write the score for you? Which is another thing we can get into. But what it was is I think the important thing for me when I tell young players is that each one of these phases of my life set me up for going further and further with what I want to do. So when I was playing in Shark Island and reading Mickey Hart's book, the last thing I was thinking of was movie scores. I'm thinking of tabla and frame drum, and I want to go to India, who knew that was going to set me up for this whole other part of my career that eventually became what I would be known for the most part. You know, and so those things are really important to allow that sense of flexibility and that sense of adaptation that you think you got it covered at 25 years old. And it's like, man, there's a whole life ahead if you start listening to different stuff and playing other stuff, expanding your musical boundaries. You have no idea the world that's there as a musician. And I'm amazed at how few players in the West, certainly in LA and stuff, drummers, friends of mine, who have no idea what the tabla is, you know? Great players.
Right.
But they haven't been here. It's like, really? So it's like trying different foods, different, you know, movies with subtitles, like things like, you know, expand those, that. So I had a worldly sense, I think, that a lot of movie directors, then I was dealing with directors as well coming into the sessions, they really appreciate it because it's a very visual sense of playing that I did. So so to be able to layer those things and all these different instruments, it was my Western kind of sensibility is why I would be hired over a traditional player, you know,
because they want something different, but you're bringing that tonality of that instrument.
That's
in, right.
And dynamics in film are really are very different than on an album. You know, you're like, you know, Godzilla. It's like I'm playing the taikos, but it's like it's also the 180 piece orchestra on Godzilla tearing apart Tokyo that you're dealing with. So you have all this sound design stuff going on that you have to be aware of. So a subtle thing does not work. And also I don't like being compressed a lot. So I want my playing to have, if it's going to be at a certain level, I don't want to have compression mess with that. So I can really play steady, really straight and keep that going. And that became a real asset again of that world, you know, because all these sounds that they wanted, but it wasn't, you know, a traditional vibe they had to work with and stuff.
So it was tracking good.
Yeah.
You could get the right sound immediately and give them the right vibe.
Well, and also I'm dealing with instruments they never heard before. So I could lead the session. I could do it. I could steer it the way I wanted it to go. Because they want a frame drum, but I brought all this other stuff. Ooh, let's try that one. Let's try that one. Let's try that one. That's a good idea. And I'm like planning it because that's the sound I wanted to create. So,
but that's great because then for them and also for you, it's you're getting something original out of this. Is basically what I'm seeing. It's like nothing conventional.
Well, and this was the pocket of the late '90s, early 2000s before sample libraries really came in.
Okay.
And there's another crucial part of why I was able to do it at that time. My timing generationally, I've kind of cursed over the years because I always said I was born 10 years too late because I wish I was a player in the 70s of really like, you know, in that world.
Yeah.
But technologically wise, I think I was very fortunate where I was at because it was the beginning of these things.
It's like a transition period.
Exactly. So I could develop, I could take that time and adapt and transition because it wasn't just like this format and this format.
Yeah.
So during this time, there were no sample libraries. There were samples on keyboard, banks of sounds on keyboards, but no like CD-ROM sample libraries or loop libraries. So I would be called just for this one gong I had, you know. They wanted
one
that
shots
gong.
and loops and stuff.
You need a shaker. Tyler would call me up on 300 and say, "Hey man, can you come down? I just need some shaker on this stuff." That's a session, you know.
Right.
So everything then is like you had to hire me to get these sounds. Now everybody has hundreds of versions of these sounds. And one of the funny stories on this is I did Argo with Alexander Desplat, who's my favorite composer and film composer I worked with. Just writes his own scores, perfect pitch, conducts his orchestra, like old school composer. And those guys are usually very, very open to the musician's input, you know, because they don't have anything to prove. They want their score to be best, as good as it can be. So I had done Argo with him, and a few months later he came back and he did the first Godzilla remake. This was like 2012 time. And so he called me in for Godzilla as the Japanese percussion specialist. So I'm working with LA Phil guys, the orchestra guys from the LA Philharmonic, and they had all the taikos and shimmy daikos and everything set up. And so I went in for the session, and anyway, long story short, it was 4 guys on 4 taikos, and the sound was just too much. Like I said, there's just no sonic real estate left. So you have to pull it back. And so they decided they're not going to go with the taikos. They're just going to put us on. So I'm doing peyote cymbals and snare drum now instead of taikos. Instead of 10 days of doing all this percussion, it's now down to 4 days orchestral because we'll just go with the samples. Well, the samples I recorded for the library that they used. So the Storm Drum 3 library that I recorded 2 years ago, that before that became the standard in the business. Yeah. So I'm like, what samples are you using? And they go, Storm Drum. I'm like, damn, I recorded those samples and I'm still not getting paid for this.
You put yourself out.
I was replaced by myself. So that transition was hard because I had developed this style, but now they could do it without. And so that's mid 2000, like I said, 2014, 2015. Yeah. The libraries got so good that those were the sessions now.
Yeah.
I'm not getting hired for a film. I'm getting hired for a sound library session. Yeah. We've all had to do it, and that's the work. But that was kind of the beginning of the end in terms of it can all be done inside the box,
right,
you know.
Right.
But that run I had really established a sense that a few guys that still use me on anything, but for the most part, they know it's a luxury, and more important, the studio knows they don't need us.
Right.
There are some composers I know that will have to sign agreements up top saying any musician you hire is from your budget. They will not pay for musicians because they know you don't.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. So that's that thing. It's again, it's a drag because we would go so deep in these scores, and why some of these movies have that is because they really have that sense of the music being that important as well. But now it's really just kind of almost an afterthought. So I'm a luxury to a lot of composers now.
Right.
Yeah.
And during this, was your Mickey Hart recording situation around this same time?
So no, that was in 2000.
Okay.
How did that come about? That was during my Voss days. When so we were on our third Voss record, and our product manager at our label had worked with Mickey Hart for years, and we needed a quote for the CD for the promotional quote. So she sent him the 3 CDs we had done and just said, she was good enough friends, it would really help if you give him a quote and stuff. Now, Mickey had no idea my connection to him. And like I said, I wasn't a deadhead, but his book changed everything in my life. So I had this kind of fanboy thing when I first met him and stuff. So he heard our Voss records. He said he was producing a CD for Kodo, Japanese taiko group.
Right.
But it was going to be more world music CD. So, would you guys like to come up and do it? He said, of course. So he came down to my house during, right before he was in LA, looking at my collection of stuff and said, yeah, bring that. And he has thousands of stuff. He has anything. But I had a few unique things, Nagara's being one of them. And so we went up to record. I didn't know who his list of drummers were going to be. So I walked in, and it's Kodo, 17 members of Kodo sitting on the floor in the studio listening to something, and in the booth to my right is Zakir Hussain. Yeah. And then there's Airto in the back, and Sikuru Adepoju back there. It's Planet Drum, basically. Yeah. And that's where it's like, the imposter syndrome sets in at first. You're just like going, what the hell am I doing here? And Zakir at that time, for me, like Mickey, I appreciated because of the words in the book and stuff like that. As a producer, as an energy center, he's amazing. Yeah. As a drummer, it's that's not his gig in that world outside of the Dead. Yeah. So he really has he knows how to bring different ways together, and he heard something in me that he felt I could add. Right. So at that point, you have to think, I wouldn't be here if I didn't belong here. Right. When you're looking around this room. So shut up. There is no imposter syndrome. You're here because of what you do. So do it, right? Yeah. So Udu as well was an instrument that I've really kind of created my own style on that is unique to a lot of other guys that will pick up an Udu. So we set up in the studio after Zakir was doing this amazing, he was doing like this Madal Tarang thing, this melody part that was just incredible. And so I met him, and Mickey tells me to go set up. So I set up the kit that I play. You've seen me play the darbuka and Udu frame drum sitting on cajon. Yeah. So I set that up, and I have this the Udu I'm playing. I post this on Instagram. You can find this on my Instagram. This first half hour after meeting Zakir. So I'm playing this Udu track to this something they had just laid down, what Zakir had just done. Under headphones, I'm thinking, okay, cool, I'm going to do it. And then all of a sudden Mickey stops and then talk back. He says, Zakir, go, you sit next to Greg and play his frame drum on the kit. So literally 30 minutes after meeting him, where I'm just amazed to be in the same studio with him.
Yeah.
He's literally shoulder to shoulder with me on my kit playing frame drum.
Right.
And he is the most humble musician, as you know, we've ever come across.
Yeah.
He'll never play over you. He'll never make you feel. What he does is he'll adjust his playing to make you sound as good as possible, right?
Exactly.
And we've seen him do this so many times, because anybody he's on stage with, he can play circles around.
Right.
But how does he make you sound so good while he doesn't shift anything?
He's playing with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And encouraging this.
Yeah.
He wants it to be as good as possible. So I was intimidated, thinking it's like, he's the best in the world. And it's like, and it was just the opposite. He was so giving and so disarming. So he sits down, he's like, is it okay if I play this? I was like, are you kidding me? So, but you see this post and we both have our eyes closed. So all I'm thinking of, this track is playing in our phones, and I'm on the Udu doing, like, finding this really cool pattern that they liked, and Zuck's on the frame drum, and and our eyes are closed, and I'm just like, all I'm thinking is just like, just don't lose the one. Just like keep this pattern going, because it's working, So as we're comfortable a few minutes in, I finally did a little fill, like a digga thing that worked into the next section. And in the video, it's like, I didn't know this at first until I saw the little clip after, but you just see Zakir with his eyes closed, and I do this thing, he just like gives me a little side glance. He heard it. Yeah. And then goes right back. He's like, cool. Yeah. And seeing that, that was like the validation. Right. He heard what I was doing, saw it, it's like, and that was it. But we became very close. We spent a week in the studio there with Mickey and Kodo. Ayerto was there for a few days. Giovanni was there for a few days. And that was just, 12 hours a day. You're just like, how deep can these rhythms go? And Mickey's studio is just this, it's a barn of, like a football field size of everything set up, mics on everything, like 300 mics in his studio with every percussion station set up. So here's the metal stuff, here's the taiko stuff, here's the gamelan stuff, and then all of Kodo's stuff as well. So, but Zakir at that time was just, there was never a talk about, oh, so what do you do? Why are you here? Like, you're there. You're there to make that music. So when he would come to LA and visit, I'd go to see him, and after the concert, he'd be playing at that time still with Ravi Shankar, would still be alive then, and Ali Akbar he did some shows with, and afterwards I go into the dressing room and he would like come over and touch my feet, because he was like this soul prankster. So everybody's like wondering who I am. And he loved that, because it was just so. That was just such a genuine. For a few years, he'd come out on the road with us. If he was playing, he'd sit in with us a night here and there. Yeah. But that relationship for me, after reading Mickey's book, working with Mickey, and now Zakir. So on that CD, it's called Mondo Head, is the name of the record, Kodo. And again, it didn't do much because it was more of a world music record. It wasn't. Kodo CDs are all taiko. Yeah. And so Kodo fans didn't really like hearing Cuban percussion and like all these other vocals and stuff on top. But it's Kodo's favorite record because they were able to branch out. They were on different instruments too and stuff. Right. But there's the one track, 3 tracks on the album, Mickey will cut you in as a writer if you're in the inception of the piece. So if you're jamming with a few people and that becomes a piece you're a writer on. He's very good like that. Wow. And So Kodo, Zakir, and Mickey Hart, I would say, were the 3 kind of, because I had seen Kodo live before too. I was just blown away by the power of the drums. Yeah. Then you have Zakir with that level of intricacy, and then Mickey with the rock and roll and the world, all this. So those 3 were I'd say, like what shaped me as a percussionist. And there are 3 tracks on that record that are co-written by, and it's Mickey Hart, Kodo, Zakir Hussain, and Greg Ellis. And there we go. To see that with those 3, like as credit, like I wrote songs with them now and stuff. It was, you get these moments where you just feel like not about making it or anything, but but you've done something here that's really unique. You followed something that led you to the source of what inspired you.
Exactly. You're in the right place. You're with the right people, and you're getting recognized for that.
And I think what you're influenced by is something that it's what you were saying about your learning of getting the old school jazz thing. Like you're starting at your age with the fusion stuff and Dave and Vinny and all these guys, right? But that was only there because of what was there 30 years before. Yeah. And that's what you had to get into to really shape your whole sense as a player, right?
You keep going back.
That's right. You've got to go back to where you started from. Shankar Ghosh said this to me. I became close to him working with Bikram for many years. Yeah. And we would have these conversations, and I remember I would tell him I was struggling because it's like, as a percussionist, I'm not a student of Indian music, and I was really struggling with T-highs at first, and I still do, but it's like at least I know how to stick a landing now. But it's like, and there's a few I can play along with, but back then it was just, I just couldn't understand them. And I was telling him the struggle I had. I go, I feel like I need to study and maybe take lessons, and he's like, why? He's like, you look what you do. Like you can figure this out. But he said, never forget where you come from. So here I was, a rock and roll drummer, trying to become this other worldly musician, and he's telling me, no, dig deeper into your rock and roll.
Right.
That's what people are responding to, is that sense of groove, that sense of like, so instead of playing the T-high, like I'll just keep the groove going through it.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, so if I had studied tabla when I first came to India, 30 years ago, I'd at best be a very good tabla player, but it'd be a novelty. I wouldn't be on stage with Zakir at the Barsi if I played. Right. But what I do was I didn't forget where I came from. So I play my percussion like a kit, but like a rock and roll drummer. Yeah. So there's a sense of that groove under there that I hear in the music, but a lot of times the math of Indian music doesn't allow to happen. Yeah. So it brought it out, that sense. And that's what like someone like Zakir would respond to. I'm not being redundant. I'm hearing the music from my perspective, and bringing that flavor into it. And if it works, that's great,
So that's the culture of, because the drum set is fairly young in the percussion world.
Right.
But as an American, the drum set is from the US, and that's the culture of the instrument.
That's right.
You have the feel and the understanding of that culture.
That's right.
And people forget that that's a culture sometimes.
That's right.
Because they look at Indian music, African music, or Latin, Cuban music, deep culture.
Yeah.
Sure, it's got more years on him, but drum set has a culture too. It's just young.
It's a good point. I think that's what you were saying even about going back and learning to like, okay, you know how to fill up the space. How do you leave the space?
Right.
And I think that goes back to the original, what was the original role of the drum set. And it was called a contraption. The trap kit comes from the word contraption.
Exactly.
So it was just a bunch of instruments.
Yeah, I use this, the way to explain to people about the drum kit. It's like, okay, I mean, there were these laws in Conga Square in New Orleans that, the slaves couldn't do their hand percussion, right? So they had to kind of find ways to play their music. And then they took instruments that existed, like the bass drum and snare drum from marching or European music. Exactly. And then they kind of put ethnic drums as toms. So you got these European, US marching instruments.
Chinese tom-tom.
Chinese toms, any ethnic drums, wood blocks, and then Turkish cymbals, Chinese cymbals, It's kind of the world's first world instrument.
It's really interesting. I mean, because I'm actually writing a book now, and it's called The Click, and I've shared this with you a bit, but I go deep into the history of the drum set and how it started. And you're right. But that part of it really was like you're hearing sounds that you'd never heard before. In an orchestra, you don't have a Zurna playing next to the oboe, for instance. So, but here you're having these sounds from other cultures, and it was all in the drums.
It's also really because of all the people that have come together from different cultures in one place. So these percussion instruments have been put together and then played by one person eventually.
Well, it was the original drum machine, actually. Because it was vaudeville guys that, like directors that didn't want to hire 4 drummers.
Right.
And so
they got the pedal.
So you put a pedal on the bass drum and suspend a cymbal, and now you got one guy that can do 3 parts.
But the one guy didn't get paid 3 guys'
No,
fee.
he didn't. This is back to my 5 days. Right? It's like I'm still getting. Wait, I'm getting paid less. I should get 3 times as much.
Right.
But no, it was a way for them to save money and all that. And I think back in the vaudeville days where the kit really became established before swing and really started taking off. It was the vaudeville stuff, and so it was mostly like a pit orchestra kind of thing that you were a percussion section.
Yes.
But then when in the 20s when it's Cab Calloway and the stuff that's got the real like first swing era comes in, that's when it became this kind of
Baby Dodds and
right, and that's those guys were really the pioneers on the instrument. They made it an
Right.
instrument, essentially, not just a collection of these sounds that
Exactly.
an orchestra guy would do.
Made it one.
Yeah.
So so that's the culture, you know.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because normally everyone says, oh, you play drums, or you should learn the Indian culture of rhythm, learn the African culture
Right.
of rhythm, which is it's good to do. It's information, it's vocabulary, it expands your playing.
Right.
But what about if you play percussion, take the drum set vocabulary, you know,
Right.
which is kind of what you're doing actually.
Yeah.
Very few people do that, which makes you sound unique.
It's I think, you know, what I shared earlier with when I've done some master classes here with young Indian drummers who are learning drum set, they're missing that point, I think, to realize like this, if you were going to learn any other instrument, you'd go through all the ways that instrument has been used. But drum set especially, like you have to go to the beginning of it to really understand what this thing was and how it evolved, because I feel as a drummer, I feel a responsibility in terms of my instrument of what it's really for, and especially with now being replaced by that people just don't even care about it.
Right.
I think there's something in it that just reminds us of why it's there, you know, and why a kick, snare, and hat. Like I think about that sometimes. Like it's so interesting that these are the three things that really have created how much music in the world, from jazz to swing to rock and roll.
Right.
I mean, it's because of the drum set.
Right.
And in my book, I'm talking about the history of that. Like really, it was because of the drum set.
Yeah.
So you would not have had rock and roll without the backbeat of rock and roll.
Right.
You know, an orchestra cannot play rock and roll.
Right.
And if the bass drum, if they're trying to do a beat like, no, it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. Yeah,
so this instrument actually is what shaped modern music.
Right.
More than, I think, as much as electric guitar, but I think more, because it was around a lot longer before electric
especially
guitar.
for jazz and like R&B music.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I think it also brought this sense of a power into drumming that the drummer could really own in a way. It wasn't printed page or four guys having to create one sound or something like that. Like we were kind of singular in the sense of the rhythm machine of a band, you know, and that feeling, you know, as a young player, when you first have that, where you're leading a band, it's like, man.
Yeah, you drive the bus.
There's nothing like it, you know. And in rock and roll, for me, that was really the thing, when I could really get into that groove and like push it and understood like how to lay back and how to play on top and stuff and these things before click tracks and everything. It was really like the power of the instrument is what I was into as much as playing.
Yeah.
Like just like what this thing can do to people.
Yeah.
You know. So that part of it I think is really important. You're right. You have to remember where it comes from, and that goes back to what Shankar says. Don't forget where you come from, and don't forget where your instrument comes from. Don't forget why it's here. Like musicians have that responsibility, I think, to continue on a legacy of why we make music and why we need music, and especially now with it being so gentrified and appropriated by electronics.
But I think that makes it the most honest if you're playing truly where you're coming from, and with the openness and willingness to kind of explore new territory, but knowing where home is, as they say.
That's right.
You know?
You have that, because I think we've talked about that too, of when you had to realize that you weren't going to play tabla.
Yeah.
Like that. I love that story.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you knew very early on, like this was going to be your instrument, right? And you said, but was it a struggle for you, or did you just always know?
No, because I got a tabla and I was like, you know, and I realized that this is going to take me 2 years, you know, to get the right sound. And I'm like, I'm only kind of intermediate on that.
Right.
Let me just get this info and do it on that instrument.
Right.
Because I was like, oh my God, this is not going to work.
It's another lifetime for me. When I found it at 30 years old, it was literally like, no way.
Yeah.
But
it takes a lot of time, a lot of dedication and hard work.
And it takes that focus too. I don't think the same way you can't really half-ass that either.
You can't.
You know, you can't pretend.
Yeah.
Certainly with the guru relationship as well. Like you can't get away with anything, right? And you're learning on that instrument.
Right. So then I was like, okay, I'm giving a lot of time to this instrument. Let me just focus on this, but take the information.
Yeah. But that was also kind of bold at that time for you in this country, wasn't it? To be a kit player?
There were a lot of kit players. There was always kit players, but I don't know, is it because of the timing for me was good?
Yeah.
Because I look at myself I use this Pat Metheny line because he used it for himself. I don't know if somebody said that about him, but I kind of see myself that way in the Indian music scene of being the last old guy, first new guy.
I love it.
You know, because of the dad and everything, I'm tied to the older generation of musicians pretty tightly. Like I've grown up with them. So my apprenticeship was with them. And then with the newer lot that's coming who are playing great, I was kind of like, they're kind of guy who they want to play with.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So, like, from the technology point of view, like the music scene point of view over here, I kind of feel attached to both sides. So
I think what we were talking about was that sense of how you think, that you think as a kit player.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like a lot of kit players here are actually starting from tabla and have their first language of tabla.
Right.
So I think that's what we were talking about.
Right.
There's no translation for you.
Right.
That's your like native language is on kit.
Which is like if a student really wants to play drums seriously as a professional, they have to understand jazz coordination and rock and roll. You have to understand jazz and rock because that's the essence of this instrument.
Right. I saw someone just recently talk about how that jazz foundation in rock and roll musicians, like immediately when that guy's got those chops.
Yeah, Ian Pace.
Ian, without question. But even Bonham had a sense of that swing, but Ian Pace took the real
Bonham
jazz
was more
stuff.
funk in rock, and Ian was more like big band jazz.
But
rock,
his jazz stuff and way the ghost notes and everything, like
but even Nico McBrain to an extent had a swing vibe.
Yeah,
even though he was like Iron Maiden,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I mean that's the thing. I think a lot of those guys but Jimmy Chamberlain, he's like, you put on a Smashing Pumpkins record and you think it's just like this indie rock thing, but he is a monster player.
Right.
And you really listen to it again. That time compression was coming in. You really have to listen for the subtle stuff because a lot of that stuff will be gated out as well. And the compression or gates and things like that was really big in the '80s. A gated reverb.
Yeah.
So I would do some albums where like literally my ghost notes are not. You only hear the back because it's so heavily compressed.
Yeah.
And when I listen to that, it's like I would have played it differently. I wouldn't have played ghost notes.
Right.
So it sounds weird because it's like you're missing these connective words tissue that's supposed to be there.
Yeah.
But that's that jazz sensibility. I really wish I had established that on kit. I think I jumped in so early on to the rock and roll that I never needed to come back to it, which I probably would have done in my late 20s had I not gone to percussion.
Right.
I probably would have gone back and really studied for a couple years with a proper jazz teacher and really learned my chops like that. But I just started in on percussion. I can do it with percussion now. But it's the only thing I miss when I get on a kit is the ability to sit down and play straight ahead jazz. And I just never got that vocabulary as a player.
Right.
Musically, I understand it completely.
Right.
But that's that one thing that is just like, man, I wish.
That's okay. You got your own thing.
Yeah, of course. And I don't miss it. But just in terms of what I hear, sometimes I'm hearing more than I can actually do.
Okay.
And I don't like that feeling.
Yeah.
When I'm in percussion, recording my stuff in the studio, whatever I think, I can do all of it.
Right.
But when I'm just on my kit, I'm not even on a gig, just on my own playing.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I wish.
Right.
But that's why I appreciate that a lot. But I agree with that. I think that jazz foundation, it's jazz and rock and roll.
Right. Exactly. So, can we talk about you going to be living in India soon? Or is that
definitely talk
secret?
about that? No. This has been a long time coming. I've been, like I said, I started coming to India in 1998. And that was, with the backpack staying in hostels. I was never like kind of a spiritual seeker in India. It was really, by that time I had done my first Voss record. And I had a collection of instruments that could get through that, but I needed a lot more stuff. And so that was coming, that's when I met Natu Laslinki and learned Nagaras up in Pushkar and got my first Nagaras. And he was the first one who said, because the Nagar technique on the left hand, is the backward stroke.
Right.
And again, it's like, wait a second, I'm 20 years like this. So my first lesson with him in Pushkar, because I saw him the day before, I said, I'm a drummer, I just want time with you, no other students and stuff. And he said, yes, I know, come. I know you're a drummer. That's good. So we sit down and start playing, and I'm like, trying to do this, it's like, no way. So I gradually just did conventional grip, it's the same angle as like
Yeah.
an angled snare drum.
Right.
So I just played it like that,
Right.
and he said, "Yes, we'll just learn the rhythms and stuff."
Great.
So that was my first in of really being able to play inside any kind of Indian ensemble. But that started my journey here. That was really that's been the most profound of my life. My wife is from India. All the stuff that came up was not about anything other than this kind of pull to this culture that wasn't any kind of fetishization of it or any kind of like, Beatles and,
Right.
Rishikesh kind of thing. It was the music, but more importantly, the rhythm. And like you said, we were talking about drummer jokes and
Yeah.
stuff, and you said there aren't those here. And I go, well, that's why I'm moving here, because there's an understanding of drum culture here, of just what the power, what it can be, from ritual, street drummers, classical.
Right.
It's just, I call it, it's like the physics of rhythm, It ends up here. And any tradition I found, any style of playing, any musical approach I found, to me, it's the pinnacle is in India. It all has arrived to this point because there's an understanding of rhythm and the way music and rhythm affects the body, from, of course, Ayurvedic and all this other stuff,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
just in terms of the culture itself, I just feel completely at home here. And so 2020 I was here. 2019 I came and the video of me playing at the Gampati Festival.
Yeah.
That was when that went viral. So that set up a lot of opportunities. I came back in 2020 for 2 months.
Yeah.
And that was to prepare us for moving here that summer of 2020 as my daughter was starting high school. And then COVID happened.
Right.
And so so now she's graduating, and so we're now planning to make the shift full time. And like I said, I've been here for this week. I've been here so many times already, but anytime I'm here, it literally feels like home. And there's just a sense of vitality of life that I think exists in this country that you really don't find elsewhere. And not to romanticize it on any level.
Yeah.
I think the point is it embodies it all at the same time. So you have to handle the full spectrum of existence pretty much any time you're in this country.
Right.
And that part of it I appreciate, because I think there's a symbiotic aspect that you can't have some kind of idealistic sense of community or government, but you find ways to make it work.
Yeah.
And India finds ways to make it work that I don't think, certainly not in America, certainly not now in America
Right.
either. So
It'll be great to have you.
I
You
can't-
hang more, play more.
I can't wait. And we're going to be doing some stuff too. We've talked a lot about it and everything, but
time.
man, it's just always just like to talk with you and to see you. It's just a pleasure, and I'm going to see you play
Likewise.
tonight. And after
Yeah.
this talking about me, I can't wait to just hear you. It's just like, so I can just shut up and listen.
No.
But,
I'm looking forward to us working together. It's going to be
yeah,
great.
I think we got a lot of stuff ahead, and that's
Yeah.
exciting to think of too. Because
Yeah.
anytime you and I get together, and I was thinking that we've done a bit.
Yeah.
It seems like we've
I mean, the Buzzsea Jam.
Right.
And then that gig, the
thing with Ravi
Yeah.
Chari that we
Yeah,
did, and it's like we've had these moments here and there
Yeah.
but it's not just I like when we jammed here the last time I
Yeah.
was here, just to play with you was just so much fun.
No,
So
likewise,
to take that into some musical performative space,
Yeah.
I think will be really cool. So
It's going to happen.
It'll happen, man.
Thanks a lot, Greg.
My pleasure, Gino. Pleasure being here, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.